All right. Welcome to Tea with Rich, official episode 3, unofficial episode 10. We had a few issues here with Riverside this morning, but we're going to start over. I am T, and this is my co-host and forever guest, Rich Lyons. Rich, how you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm a little wounded, but I'm coming back. I'm coming back from a little head cold. So I
How
got
long you had that?
one ear good and one ear not so good. Just a few days. Just a few days. I stopped coughing up very colorful things, and so I'm back to being pretty normal.
Not.
Red sauna yesterday. I think I burned some of it out, so that was awesome.
That's awesome. I actually do red light and infrared sauna 2 or 3 times a week. So I try and do red light 3 times a week. I do infrared twice a week, but I actually also did the same thing yesterday. Another thing that I do that's just as heat and sweat generating as the infrared sauna is I go to a golf sim indoors in a sweatsuit, and I literally I speed golf for an hour, and I swear
Come
to God.
on. I
I
like
wish I was
that.
joking. I actually did it this morning at 8 o'clock, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, you know what? I need to stop wearing a sweatsuit to the sim because I get mad. I think my hat is just starting to dry. That's how wet it was. I didn't have time to come
Nice.
home and do my hair, so.
Well, I got shaved up. I kind of shaved the cheeks. Cut the neck.
You
Shaved the
do that
head.
yourself? You do your you a self groomer?
I am. I don't trim the beard though. I'm getting pretty long right now. But I
Yeah,
trim the mustache because my wife likes to kiss my lips, not the mustache when it
yeah,
starts
yeah,
going way
yeah,
over. But
yeah. I figure once my mustache starts picking up food, it's time to trim it. And
yeah, me too.
I, I we talked about it in the last episode. Like I'm gonna actually probably take this beard way down here this weekend because it makes me look old, and I hate that. And it's getting pretty bushy, so I got to get
Someone
that
just said that
fixed.
to me. One of the daughters of a friend down here is like, "Oh my gosh, your beard's getting so gray." I'm like, "You're not supposed to say that."
No, you're not. It's
I
actually
still have
grayer
some
in
dark.
person than on camera.
I still have some dark, right?
Listen, I mean, it's a good beard, so it's a very Moses-esque thing. So I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Have you watched the new Netflix series, The Gentleman?
No,
Oh, you need to watch it. There's a dude
dude,
on there
I'm
with like
hooked on.
there's a
Good,
dude like with a big beard. It's pretty good.
like just like a full hedge underneath his chin.
Oh, so good. I'm like, I want to be that guy. I think he's called the Prophet or something. I'm like, I want to be the Prophet.
I am. I am. I'm like a reality show guy. I hate to admit this, but like, I love American Idol. I love Survivor. Actually, I don't like Survivor anymore, but I'm watching it. The people that they're picking. There's like this whole new generation of kind of softness that I'm not a big fan of. But I'm hooked on this series Shogun. Have you seen Shogun? It's a remake of a show from the
I
70s.
haven't seen it, but I saw that it came out. That's cool.
Dude, it is absolutely
Really?
stunning, and it's one of those shows you have to pay attention to. You can't half watch it because it's only about 1/3 English and 2/3 Japanese, and it is the cinematography
Oh, I
um,
gotta check it out. That'd
it,
be cool.
is absolutely off the hook. So,
Did you see
um,
the new Roadhouse with Conor McGregor?
you know what? When I got back from Sonoma on Sunday, on Monday night, Shannon had to go right back to work. She's a night nurse, and I did. I stayed up until
Well, I haven't
midnight.
watched it. Was it good? I haven't seen it.
I thought it was good. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal is it. I thought he did a good
Yeah,
job,
he
and
looks pretty. He looks pretty jacked,
oh
Jake.
yeah, well he was. They actually shot a scene at one of the UFC fights. Like they actually in between fights, they came out and shot that whole thing at an actual live event.
Really?
Yeah, I think I
Wow.
don't. I'm not positive. I think it was at the T-Mobile Center. So he actually did the walkout in the middle of an event, got in the
Wow.
cage. All that footage was actually shot while they
Wow, that's
were in
cool.
between fights. And yeah, he was ripped, and Connor was Connor. I mean, the villain that Connor has kind of portrayed himself as, and he was definitely juiced. Um, he did a good job.
That's cool. I'm
It
gonna
was a good.
watch it. I'm gonna
It was a
watch it.
good flick. I bought. Did I buy? Oh no, it's free. It's free on Prime actually, which is
Yeah, it's
weird
free
because it
on
just got
Prime.
released.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. So let's get to updates. So last week you and I were at ShopTalk, right? So
Yep.
by the way, you guys came for dinner. There was 10 of us at the suite. For anyone that doesn't remember, I rented a suite because I had 3 buddies with me, and instead of getting 3 rooms, we just got a massive 3,200 square foot suite with a full kitchen. And I decided to cook a meal for, it was about 10 of us that was there, and it was like a 5 course meal, but
Food
all
was
Indian
great.
food.
Dude, the
Thanks for coming
food was,
by. I super appreciate it. How was that whole thing for you? Because
I
I don't know
thought
if we told you what a nightmare cooking it was.
you did tell me some of it. You have to share that, but the food was great. I mean, it
Yeah,
was awesome. I mean, the food you cooked was great. I think Adam cooked some of it. I mean,
yeah.
it was super nice. Like, hats off to you guys. I mean, you got, especially given the challenges that you faced
Oh,
trying to
dude.
get a meal out. I mean, it was legit. No, it was a legit good meal.
Yeah. It might have
And
been
the
the worst.
company was great. The company was
Yeah.
great too. It was awesome.
Yeah, we had a good squad there, and I'm glad I saw Portnoy and Broft earlier in the day and got them to come up. But yeah, you would think when you rent a 3,200 square foot suite and you tell them a day earlier that you're coming in and you need to cook a meal for 5 or 10 people, that the kitchen would have things in it. But no, it took 14 trips from 6 different people to get us barely what we needed to barely, like, we felt like Adam and I felt like we were on a mountain, like in a cabin doing like campsite cooking. It was that bad. And
No, but
Adam
I
made
think
that.
the journey's part of the gift, right? It's like that old story, the journey was part of the gift. So hearing all that made it even that more special. So
Well, Adam
thank you.
brought, yeah, I appreciate you guys coming up. Adam brought the 2 3 liters of wine that helped grease the
They
skids
were
on
big.
stuff.
They were big.
They were massive. I was like, those are the biggest magnums I've ever seen. Because I don't know what you call it after a magnum, but double magnum, I don't know, whatever. But so he, like, dude, I'm losing my mind, right? Like, takes me, it's like a 5 hour thing. All the shit I did is like 4 or 5 hours. And like, I go, I need a full set of knives. He brings me 2 steak knives. I'm like, fucking steak knives? I have to cut 10 pounds of chicken up for fucking curry chicken. You brought me 2 shitty steak knives. Dude, it was a nightmare. And the only thing that kept me good was Adam goes, buddy, I'm just glad to be here hanging out with you. And that kind of like made the
Good to
whole
see
thing,
Adam. No, it was
that
good
made
to
the whole
see
thing
Adam.
better.
It had been way too long.
Yeah.
I
He,
got
uh, he,
My Agno stack hat. I mean, I was jacked up.
yeah, he calmed me down, and I needed that more than I knew. But then he makes this like cucumber soup, cold soup. It's absolutely off the hook. He makes the lamb with the peas, almost in an Indian style, and then he wanted to make them in like open. I don't even know what you call it, but sort of puff pastry things. And then we find out an hour before you guys get there that the oven doesn't work. They got the power shut off to it. So I have a dude come up and turn the power on. He turns the power on. The thing starts making all these weird noises. I'm
Oh
like, can you
no.
just go shut the oven off? We'll just use the stovetop for now. But it was good. It was good. And I made some of those chickpea pancakes, but I didn't have enough stuff to make them for everybody. So just Adam and I basically dipped them in the curry chicken, which was pretty funny. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
but it was good. So let's get into the shop talk stuff. So anything you saw or heard, or what's the tea, so to speak, on sort of shop talk?
I mean, I didn't get a badge like you and I talked about this. I didn't. I never even went in the floor. I made it to the convenience store. I met some people by the food court. That's as far as I made it, and saw a few people up there, and had a few meetings. But I didn't, I didn't go to any of the sessions. I think for me, it's a lot of it's the vibe, right? Obviously, seeing you and seeing a bunch of friends and stuff, and I thought it was a good vibe. I heard the same thing you were talking about. Some good meetings. People had some good meetings. I think it's a unique setup where if you can actually get good meetings and they set them up for you, like that's legit, right? And there's a lot of people there. I mean, I saw a lot of people still there. Maybe wasn't as crowded as it was right after COVID because everyone was so anxious to get out. But I thought there was a lot of people there.
I thought it was a good squad, and the feedback I got is, because I didn't go on the show floor either, was it was maybe the best show that they had done. So maybe they're
Wow.
hitting a stride. And I heard the meetings. I heard the speed. I call it speed dating, but I heard the meetings were off the hook. Like people legitimately had stunning meetings. So hats off to Shop Talk. It's literally my favorite event to go to every year, and I love Mandalay because my very first UFC event I ever went to was in Mandalay.
That's it. That's awesome.
Yeah, UFC one. I think UFC 100. Ooh, I don't know. I might be wrong, but yeah, I've been to a lot of events at Mandalay, and it's got a kind of a special place in my heart. That's actually where I brought my brother to his first ever fight, who passed away a few years ago. So it was good. I think my favorite part of Shop Talk is just all the people and all the connecting. Right, I get to talk to Magento folks and Hybris folks and Commerce Cloud folks and Shopify folks and all of that. And I think that sort of non-denominational sharing and kind of camaraderie is good. And then, of course, we were after dinner. There was the evening entertainment portion of the show, which you didn't come out to one evening event, so I commend you on that.
I'm kind of glad because I got sick anyway, but I mean, maybe it would have been worse. I mean, I was kind of not feeling well, and I don't know. I mean, but then it set in, but it's better that I didn't.
Yeah. And then from Shop Talk, we basically had to get on a flight at 7 a.m. on Wednesday, and I went to Sonoma for the V Foundation event with two other couples, and that was amazing. The V Foundation, I talked about the other episode, but that's Jimmy V and ESPN and the ESPYs and all of that. And for the first time at the V Foundation, I sat in every session there was, including the symposium.
Wow.
And it was amazing. We won. Our table at the big gala night was table 19, and I would say that of the 300 people there, the other 290 either really, really loved us and would like to be at our table next time, or prefer we don't come back. So it was good. We definitely had
stuff though. I like that you won some good stuff.
Yeah. It's all for a good cause, right? So, and the symposium was amazing. We talked about how the theme this year at the V Foundation Sonoma Epicurean event was actually colorectal cancer, right? And it was kind of we over openly talked about that in the last episode. And listening back to it, I was like, I told Shane, my wife, I'm like, I have to be careful what I say because I forget. Dude, if you knew how many fucking DMs I got.
Oh, I bet you got a lot.
Oh, well, no.
All you got to do is you got to get it scheduled, so then we'll all leave you alone.
Well, the best part is I'm trying to tell Shannon how many people are like DMing me, and then as I'm telling her, my fucking phone goes off, and it's Nitin from Salesforce telling me about Cologuard, and I'm like, and she's like, who's? And I'm like, I can't get away from this. Like, I can't. Even at the show, everybody tracked me down. But I will, and while we won't film it, I will be very open about when. I'm looking for a new PCP right now. But back to the V Foundations, 100% of the money that V Foundation collects actually goes towards early research grants. So it was just amazing. So, of course, you see all of that. And then at the gala, which is Saturday night, they get some speakers up there, a former NFL player. I think he played for the Pats, actually, Devin Hill, maybe. And, they get you all crying. I mean, everyone, all the boys were crying at my table. I won't say their names. Everyone knows who was with me already, given my wife's Instagram post. But, and they just grease you up. And then, we're all good buddies. And, so we threw down big. I think we definitely had the good table. We were the fun table. Got some good items and did good. For anyone that doesn't know why I'm so involved in the V Foundation, and besides the V Foundation, I'm very active with food insecurities and at-risk youths. Mayhew and a local group called Gather here for food insecurity. Mayhew's for at-risk kids. Super involved in the V Foundation because of how early they fund people. And, I've lost one of my mentors this summer to pancreatic cancer. I lost my mother to leukemia. I lost my brother to lung cancer. And that's literally all in the last 3 years, right? And my wife had lost her mother at 18 to leukemia. So, anytime I can find an organization that's doing real good and really putting their sort of money where their mouth is, I tend to go all in. And if you feed me enough wine, I might forget a few auction items that I bought and deny it in the morning. I did. I went in the next day and I'm like, okay, because you have to go in the next morning. And this is a true story, by the way. You have to go in the next morning and they pull all the items. They're like, yeah, you got 5 items. I was like, no, I think I got 3. It's like, well, what do you think you got? So I name off the 3, and they're like, yeah, none of that. I'm like, well, what do I got? So they bring them all out and they show them to me, and I'm like, I definitely didn't buy this. She's like, you did. So she brings a sheet out that's got my wife's signature on it, and I go, can I invoke the drunk wife rule? I shit you not. And they go, I guess if you want to. I was like, okay. So then I text Ethan, and I'm like, Ethan, did I bid on this? Like, so the package was NCAA trip for 4 to the Final Four week in Phoenix with lodging for 4 people. So I get to go there, have pimp seats for the Final Four, and then the third and fourth place game, and then the championship game, right? All accommodations, and then another trip with a whole bunch of wine and stuff. And I go to Ethan, I go, she goes, I'm pretty sure you bid on this. I'm like, I don't even watch basketball. I'm pretty sure I didn't. It was the last auction item of the night, by the way. And so I text Ethan Zahn, who's a really good buddy of mine. I go, buddy, did I bid on this? And he sends me a video of like the final thing where I win.
Oh,
And
no.
so I literally have a 45-second video of me winning and the guy coming over and telling me, do you want to overbid this other table next to us? And I'm like, yeah, fuck it, why not? And I stand up like I just won the Super Bowl, and I like do a hands up like circle in the entire place, and the place goes wild. And it's because I think our
no,
table,
I didn't bid on that. I didn't bid on that.
dude, I felt like an asshole. So then I look at the girl and I go, well, I go, apparently I did. And of course I settled up. But no, our table bought
Awesome.
eight items. Our table bought 8 of the 24 items. So, but it was for a good cause.
I think
and
it's great. I think it's great. I mean, cancer affects too many of us, right? I mean, both my
Dude,
grandparents died of cancer. A dear friend, you know, Scott,
Yeah.
Steve, and I don't think you ever knew Jen. I mean, she died of lung cancer. I mean, so we've,
Yeah.
you know, we give, you know, American Cancer Society, you know, the V Foundation, and I used his speech. That speech is still a very, very inspiring speech to me.
Yeah.
You know, his at the ESPYs when he won, and Dick Vitale helped him on the stage. I mean, it was, I cry every time I hear that speech. And I actually used part of it in my, you know, father of the bride speech when Morgan got married, to talk about, you know, every day, a good day, you know, you think, you laugh, and you cry. And that's a
I
good
think you
day,
said
and
that
that's
when
me.
I was. I think you said that when I was in Chicago, actually.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. I had to
Yeah.
say it twice. So for sure.
Yeah. Well, you said it once with a quivering voice, and then once with a non-quivering voice, which is always good. But yeah, no, it's a good organization, and I did meet Jen. I was on a call with the Wright Foundation, a couple of calls, so I got a chance to chat with her and interact with her, and of course Scott. I feel like I know her because you and Scott talked about her constantly, and. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but another stat that came up that was pretty scary is the rise in colon cancer for folks under the age of 40, and
Wow.
it's a major issue right now. It's the only form of cancer that is actually growing, and they cannot figure out why it is becoming more of an issue, which is an interesting thing to say. And maybe just nobody wants to kick the cat, but the reality is that the modern diet, the modern sort of circadian adherence, electronics in kids' pockets constantly, and everything that goes along with that. You know, I don't know why. You know, they're not being a little bit more direct. Maybe it's the scientific community, and nobody wants to kind of choke the throat on that, but you know, I think that we've been slowly poisoning our food and poisoning our youth anyway. So anyway, if you are under the age of 40, you know, colonoscopies are now being recommended, especially if you're in a
It's
high
like
risk.
35 now, right? Which is crazy because
Yeah.
it used to always
Yeah.
be 50. Like for me, I
Yeah,
got my first one when I was 51, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the other fucked up part, Rich. It's actually not like most people. It's genetically tied. This new phenomenon that's going on is not genetically affiliated. We're not talking about people that are an increase in genetic predisposal to it. We're talking about people where they do not understand why this is becoming a pandemic, or I don't, pandemic's a bad word, but an epidemic. And when you look at the charts and what's going on, it's basically hockey sticking up. So, you know, and I got an 18-year-old and two 20-year-olds, and thank goodness I cook everything for them. But it's weird. But again, I digress. That was a lot on the V Foundation and
Good
ShopTalk and all that
organization.
stuff. So, an actual real question, like, what's your sort of perspective on what's going on e-commerce lately? You know, I know this is an out of the blue question, right? And by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, Rich and I have spent, 15 to 30 years literally as executives and I would say sought after thought leaders in the e-commerce space, regardless of what platform it was. But, there's a lot of weird shit out there right now, right? You got the 10,000-pound gorilla basically stomping over every tree, and then all the villagers are like fighting over table scraps and what's going on, right? We got the Mock Alliance out there. It's many ants trying to be a mighty beast, and you got Salesforce, kind of doing their thing. Adobe, right? The Adobe conference was this week, the week
Right.
after ShopTalk, and nobody really knows what's going on with Magento. And then there's this whole battle with headed and headless and composable and integrations, and there's a lot of bullshit out there right now. Brands are
A lot
fucking
going on.
confused. What's your read? You got a 2 minute sort of read on that, or is that too spicy of a topic to
I don't know. I
spring
mean,
on
there's a
you?
lot. I mean, there's a lot in that, right? There's a lot in that. And some of my opinions, like obviously, well, we did Hybris and Magento and Demandware, right? Back in the
Yeah,
day, right?
yeah,
And we both fully, I think, believed in that Demandware platform, right? It was very robust, very scalable. I mean, Salesforce, maybe I can't say this, but I'm going to anyway. And you'll say the same thing. Salesforce hasn't done a lot with it, right? Obviously they're trying to go to core and B2B and OMS and all of that. And the one thing, if you can get to that nirvana of single view of the customer, like that's still something, right? Even though everyone talks about it. Like if Salesforce can get, let's say, Demandware to core, if they can get Marketing Cloud to core, if you can have Marketing Cloud and, Commerce Cloud and OMS and sales and service, all your data all on, one single customer record, like that's legit. I'm just not sure if it can be done,
yeah,
to be honest, because Marketing Cloud was a bunch of shit put together. Commerce Cloud, the Demandware product was a lot. And can you replicate that? I'm not sure. But I
yeah,
think, Shopify's been kind of eating everyone's lunch, to be honest, right? They've done a nice job. And everyone kind of gave away that middle market. I thought, here's my opinion, right? I thought Magento should have never given away that middle market. And they did. They tried to go up and compete with Demandware. I thought Demandware should have never given up that middle market, even though they're like, oh, it's too costly to support those low-cost customers. Come up with a different fucking product. Fucking figure it out. Dominate the whole market. As soon as you start giving away part of the market, and look what happened. That's exactly what happened. Everyone, we just want the big customers. Well, what happened? Well, Shopify comes in, takes every customer they can, including starting to take the big customers, and good for them. And you and I had this conversation, this headless, client server. Let's go way back. Like everyone, just name it different things. Client server, headless, composable. Like just make up a fucking different name so people think like, oh, we got to do this. And my whole thing, and TJ, you probably have a different opinion because you're more on the technology side, but I'm like, prove it to me. Why do you need headless? Why do you need all these different systems? If you can show me conversion is up, if you could show me, AOV's up, if you show me the proof, that's great. But just to do it for fun, like, what's wrong with the monolithic? Like you and I argued, forever, like, why not go to market? Like, remember when Salesforce, Mark Benioff was brilliant. He did the no software thing, and everyone's like, there's no fucking way banks are going to put stuff in the cloud. There's no fucking way people are going to do that. Well, guess what? Now everyone's doing it. So why didn't Salesforce, when they bought Demandware, say no headless? Just go monolithic is the best. You don't need it, and we're going to invest in this platform. We're going to be the best monolithic platform. We're going to keep going with feature and functionality, and we're going to fucking crush the market. Didn't happen. All right, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Well, it's interesting because we never hear about Magento anymore or whatever they renamed it. I don't even know if it's called. I love how everybody just calls it what it was. Like, oh, it's Adobe's whatever. No, it's fucking Magento. It's like, oh, it's Adobe Experience Manager. No. That's fucking C.
It was like Adobe Commerce Cloud, and you had Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and you had SAP
Oracle.
Commerce Cloud. Like everyone named it the same thing.
Or Oracle. Well, yeah, everyone wants to drift off the runner, right? So whoever's in the front, everyone wants a little bit of that sort of swing juice out of them. So, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this that are just waiting for me to uncork on whatever it is that's going on. I mean, the reality is I'm not going to do that, right? It's not fair to shit on any particular platform or anything like that. And I know a lot about all of them. Like a lot of people don't know. We salvaged Magento shit back in the day. We know how it works. I know how it works. I know what it's good at and what it isn't. I've done Shopify shit. I've set it up. I've managed it. I've consulted on it behind the scenes. And of course, I'm a Demandware guy. True and blue, died through. So I think the challenge with commerce right now is that we've the whole point with the headed system, let's stop calling it monolith. Let's stop shitting on things, right? Like headless. I think the thing that concerns me more about e-commerce right now is just the sheer fucking confusion that's out there. Like what's better and what's worse. And you got these guys coming up and saying composable, which by the way is the same fucking thing as headless and is the same fucking thing as monolith.
It's a new word.
Demandware was composable. If I could go out and there were 300 link partners that I could integrate and I could get my own OMS from 10 different people or my own payment processor from 20 different people or 16 shipping integrations or pull the merchandising tools out, that's fucking composable, right? So can we cut the bullshit on the divide and conquer? It's like this religious war and, it's like Catholic Protestant, right? If you're not one, then you're the devil, right? And, the Catholics are the biggest gangster group in the recorded history. So let's not get me going on religion. I think the bigger thing that I'm bothered by is how much techno babble and how many acronyms and how much bullshit has made it into the C-suite and the boardroom. And I don't think the C-suite has the courage to say that they don't actually have any idea what somebody's talking about half of the time, that with few exceptions. Right. And I don't think boards have the courage either to say, you just did an hour-long pitch, by the way, driven by IT, to add to your team, add to your costs, add to your platform stack, add to your integration, add to your risk factor, right? Add to your latency, right? So that's just 6 things in 10 seconds, right? And I don't think anybody really has been brave enough to kind of tamp that down. And I think the moment that we allowed, and I don't mean to generalize with IT, but the moment we allowed technology to be the driving conversation, everybody in the executive team and the board kind of lost that battle. And the business slowly had all of the tools that we spent with Demandware 15. Demandware is going to be 20 years next year, right? Yeah. I think a lot of people haven't been in the business long enough, right? I've literally been on Demandware for 20 years. I own an agency for 30. There's a reason why Headed and the Monolith, or whatever you want to call it, existed. And it was to put the tools in the hands of the business.
Of the marketers, 100%.
Yeah, in a fluid way and reduce the reliance on tech. Do you know how many clients are pissed off that they have to argue with the IT and the modern IT about what tickets are going to get done for the business to drive revenue? So I think the thing that frustrates...
to change some words on the homepage, remember, it'd take forever. You'd have to log a ticket to change some words.
It's actually worse than that, right? Like ADA compliance and SEO, like a lot of this stuff has been moved technically, and a lot of this stuff has also been scattered amongst many systems. And I think that we're too caught up in all the buzzwords and all the promises and not enough on the actions. I think we need to take the role of a chief digital officer and a chief experience officer more seriously. I think the experience officer is what's needed to get everybody else working the right way. And I think we need to get IT out of these conversations, because I don't think adding to costs and adding to the stack and all of that has proved its way. That's on the business side, right? Now let's talk about the ISV side of things. They're just exasperating the fucking problem. As long as so interesting story. I was at ShopTalk a couple of years ago, right? I literally sat down with a bunch of people involved in an organization. And I said, I literally need to buy like 17 things, right? 17 contracts. I go, and it all pins into something on the bottom. I go, what are you going to do when your client discovers that none of this shit works together without like extreme custom integrations? Like none of it's plumbed, right? And their answer was, I shit you not, this was in a group, their answer was, it's their responsibility to make informed decisions. It's my responsibility to sell them applications. And I said, so what do you mean? And they said, I just want to close the deal.
Yeah.
It's on them to make sure that they buy the right software and that
No,
they
that's
know how to
great.
get it integrated and get it up. And that there is the fatal flaw, right? We got ISVs that are out there just care about GMV and AOV and contract closes, and there's no fucking service after the sale. There's no follow through. And when you get all of this shit and you try and put it together, it's extremely expensive. And by the way, there aren't very many people in the industry that know the sequence to do this, right? So let's just say you do make a good decision and you do buy a dozen things and it is anchored by some headless or composable framework. Not many people in a reasonable time frame for a reasonable cost actually know the order of operations on how to do that and how to pull it off, right? They just don't. I can tell you that IT does not know. That's why SIs exist. I can tell you the
Right.
board is hoping and promising that the budget they were convinced to spend makes it. I can tell you that the C-suite is accountable for that. But once the deal closes, there's the accountability chain is broken. And there's a question here from Patrick Coglanesi. Patrick, I'm sorry if I butchered that I'll get to as well. But that's my issue with the industry right now. There's a lot of fancy words and a lot of fancy selling going on, but there's nobody making sure it actually gets done right, reasonably and affordably. And affordably is different. Affordably for one is 100 grand. Affordably for another might be 50 million, right? And I've been on $50 million projects and I've been on 500K projects and everything in between.
That goes back to the responsibility in what you're selling and make sure it works, right? You can't, I agree with you, you can't just wash your hands and be like, it's their responsibility to do due diligence and make sure it works. That's bullshit. It's should be the person's responsibility who's selling it to make sure that it gets implemented properly and does what you're promising, right? I mean.
Yeah, well, that's just it. We all trust the deck, right? Yeah, but I know, yeah, but what, the caveat is like the things I showed you cost 10 million and your budget's $1 million, right? That's the other bait and switch that everybody does. But so it's a little weird. There's a little fuckery out there. There's a little bit of no service after the sale, and with everything going on now, every agency is kind of getting beat up and, driven down market. And the reality is that e-commerce and digital and customer experience is that's it right now, right? That's what we do. We're on our phones, we're on our laptops, we're on our iPads, and, we see a commercial, we scan a QR code. So, I think we need to get back to talking about what the experience should be and then design around the experience and stop letting tech lead the experience. There's too much technology in front of bad experiences, and the best platform still sucks if it's not the right experience. And that's what I think we had at Demandware. That's what I think we had at Salesforce Commerce Cloud, obviously, because I did that ever since the purchase 7 years ago. And I think there was a pocket of SIs out there, you and me and a few others, that we held ourselves accountable to that promise, because in between what the software company thinks they sold and the customer thinks they bought is reality. And we were the reality. We're the people that have to go and say, yeah, that's not really true. Like, you got to get that out of the way quick. You can't do that at Sprint 9, right? So I don't know. I think it's a little weird.
I agree with you. I think it's interesting. Like COVID came, right, and everyone kind of threw out customer experience, right? Because you had to, stores closed, and then all of a sudden it's like, I just got to get something up. I don't care what it looks like. But I think, we're coming back to customer experience as king.
Well,
right?
COVID was fish in a barrel too, right?
Totally.
So it didn't matter. Everybody was just sitting at home. And I think the other thing that happened in COVID is that a lot of people got soft. I think a lot of people job hopped, and the people that built the sites and maintained them and managed them and had intimate knowledge of how it got from 4 million to 45 or 400 million were replaced by new people that came in that had to fill a gap. And nothing against their role, but they don't have that. They never took a site from 4 to 400 or 4 to 45, right? And there's a big gap out there. So I mean, we're going to settle out. It's, we're not, we're 20 years into this. I mean, I don't know when the first car was made, but I think if we look back in history, And when I say 20 years, I mean 20 years in SaaS, right? Right now, we're about 20 years into the SaaS movement. If you look back at the plane, the train, and the automobile, and I think you'll find in its first 20 years, it had kind of a awkward moment, pre-pubescence oddities where the head was bigger than the body and stuff like that. So, but it's all good. So let's get to. Sorry, that was a rant, but I'm not going to shit on any platforms because I don't think it's necessary. But I'm going to just shit on the approach that people are taking and not holding themselves accountable at the end of the day. And I think everyone's arguing and debating right now about like, well, we're gonna, and then you got Shopify, which is this monster that's just coming down and literally chewing through everything it touches. And the mid-market thing's an interesting issue that you brought up, right? Everybody. Magento wanted to go up market, Salesforce didn't want to go down market at the time. And meanwhile, you got this little, I think I can. Thomas the Train just comes through and demolishes everybody. But they also only do commerce, right? They haven't made a purchase yet. Shopify has not bought outside of commerce. I mean, they're into Klaviyo pretty deep, which is just a bunch of Twilio wrappers, but they're still just commerce. Yeah. They don't have enterprise stuff. Let's go into Q&A. So on the e-commerce thing, I have a question that came in from a former client and a friend of mine, Patrick Coglianesi. Sorry, Patrick. And this is on the ISV side of things. And so many projects involve bringing in and deploying a new tool or solution, often at my recommendation. But the landscape of tools and solutions has been exploding exponentially over the years, which we just talked about, bullshititis. I've always found that you have a keen sense of which of the new players were going to emerge as winners and which established tools were losing a step, right? So we just had that conversation on who's winning and who's losing a step. How do you do it? What's your approach or calculation to determining which tool you would advocate for and recommend for clients, right? Because remember, it's my ass on the line and yours,
totally.
Right? Any stories where you back the wrong horse in a big way or vice versa? Oh, dude, listen. Most of my stories are that. But Rich, what are your thoughts on that? Like, because you're the same way. They're like, oh, I need a new payment processor. Do I do Adyen, Braintree, Salesforce payments? Although payments came out after you got out, but.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of it was, and you probably agree, a lot of it was testing and trial, right? Like we would test these things. We would be in them. And I was kind of different, and you can comment on this, TJ, which I think would be interesting to hear your perspective. I was always the one that was willing to build the cartridges, right?
Yeah.
No one wanted that business. Everyone said it was bullshit business. Everyone's like, that business sucks. I don't want that business. It's not big enough. I don't want that business. But I had a different perspective right to this point. I'll take that business because then I get to see the insides of these other tools of the ISV partner, right? I get to see if it actually works, and I get to see what the link cartridge does, because everyone thinks a link cartridge means it's plug and play, and you said that, and it's bullshit. It usually doesn't. All of them needed some level of customization, even though people thought it was plug and play, right? So if I was building it, then I knew, right? And I knew what it was. And guess what? There's another reason too, because it allowed me to backdoor into some deals, by the way, right? Because all of a sudden I got to get in and support someone, and I could take over them on support. But it also you got to see what stuff sucked, right? If I'm building that link cartridge and I'm looking at this functionality, I'm like, this sucks. This doesn't work, right? And we had because we were early into support, right? We supported a lot of customers. At one point, I think we supported 100 customers on the Demandware platform. So of course I had great insight into what was working and what wasn't working, right? And I could try things out and I could see it, and then I could go, hey, this really worked for this customer. Maybe it will work for you. And so I do think, some of it is trial and error. Some of it is when you see something. Like, think about when Apple Pay first came out. Like, people weren't adopting, right? But we're in there early, you're in there early, and we're like, you got to get on this Apple Pay stuff, and you start telling your customers, and you start doing it, right? So I think some of it came with, I don't know if it's the best answer, but some of it came with, because we had all these customers in support, because I was building the cartridges, I had a pretty good sense on what was good and what wasn't.
Yeah, I hear you. It's funny because just to go back to your answer, and again, the question was, how do we make recommendations on which third-party tools and solutions work or don't work, and how do we spot a winning horse with potential and a dying horse, and some nightmares. But I don't. You know what's interesting? I don't think I knew as much about your business and how you ran it as I've learned just in the last 5 months. Like, you and I have talked a lot. I'd say the
Yeah.
last year. You literally, I unintentionally, we are way more alike as agencies than I think even maybe you do know. I don't know how much intel you had, but we thought being a managed services agency was literally the key to victory and long-term sustainability.
100%.
Anybody can go ask somebody out on a date and get the first date. Not many people can make that date matter and keep that relationship for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
100%.
years. And you've taken clients from me, and I've taken clients from you in the
Yep.
past, in past years. But managed services is the cornerstone. I think at one point we were doing 65 to 70% of revenue on our ecom practice out of managed services. On the partner side, and I'll get to Patrick's question, I don't think there's anything more important than having partners, and I don't think it has to be all a big money maker. I think the equity that comes from the relationship and the network is key. I have become very best friends with all of the partner leads in all the ISVs because we
Yep.
also did link cartridge development, and we actually got to learn a lot. We get to see what their engineering teams like. Were they good or did they suck? How was their documentation? How were their endpoints? How were their APIs? How did they respond to a problem? That's the number one thing, right? Did I have to chase somebody down? Because if it comes to me and I got to make a fucking phone call, shit's gone pretty sideways, right? On a link cartridge project. And I befriended all the link guys, right? Like, literally touched it, almost every link cartridge out there, Cloud and Airy, everybody. So I think those are two very misunderstood parts of the business. I think a good partner program and a good ISV integration program is key because, and people always ask, why do you care about that? I care about it because everybody always asks me for recommendations, and I need to make ethical recommendations. And if I can't make a strong recommendation, I need to be clear what I heard. So my party line is, I haven't worked with them yet, but I've heard amazing things about this particular integration. And I'm not going to name any of them because I don't want to shit on people or give people undue props, right? The other side was that when we worked with them, we would always ask clients, right? Like, when you've got, 60 or 70 customers, there's a lot of equity in that knowledge. The other reason that we always know who's good and who's bad is because, unbeknownst to most of you, all of us agency guys outside of off the field of battle are actually very good friends, and we can call each other and we can ask questions that you can't ask, and we can call ISVs and we can ask questions that you can't ask, or you can and they won't tell you. There's a disarming nature to me as an SI when I call an ISV or an integration thing and actually be really open, like, hey, let's not fuck around here. Like, have you done it or have you not done it? Like, is it a real integration or is it a fucking JavaScript include, right? You remember that trick for a while, Rich? It was like JavaScript includes. So we just been around and seen a lot of stuff, and we're listening to the gossip line. There's so much gossip in our industry right now. The reality is we could make a whole episode just on dumping tea on kind of what's going on out there. But Rich and I respect to everybody too much. We'd have to have a different one and change our voices to the FBI thing. But so the second part of the question on, with so many projects involving stuff, how do you pick the right ISVs and make recommendations and stand behind them? The second question on that was, any stories where you've backed the wrong horse in a big way or vice versa? Yes. I have stories as recent as last year, and I dealt with it by basically having to invest like literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into these clients to make it good. Because when I make a recommendation and I stand behind one of those horses and they fumble fuck, even with me involved, I have to cover the spread on it, or they have to cover the spread. There's been a couple instances where I've had to eat it, and there's been a couple instances where I've made them eat it because they made me a promise to take care of this customer. I made the client a promise that we were going to get their A team from this ISV, this integration, and it didn't happen, right? And everyone likes to point fingers at the end, but if you've never worked with me, I am the level of precision with which I speak and I make requests. would alarm most people. Like, you can't go back into a conversation and tell me I meant something other than I did, because I remember word for word on these ISV conversations what the dialogue was and why we did it and why we made the recommendation and why we vouch. It's a weird thing that I have. So yeah, I've backed a lot of losers and learned the hard way, and I've backed a lot of winners, and it's been a great thing. I think they're all good lessons, and I think that the horror stories are humbling. And,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes you just sort of throw recommendations out, you know, you get caught up in the dialogue, and when shit goes sideways, you're a little bit more thoughtful about that. So, alrighty, so there was a doozy. So I got another question. We're going to skip questions for each other because that's what we did for the first 40 minutes. But this is a question from actually a young lady that was one of my direct reports when she saw we put the stuff on LinkedIn. Her name is Kristen Lucian, and might be one of my favorite true managers that I've ever had a chance to interact with and mentor. But what is your do you set boundaries for yourself in the context of work? And if yes, what are they? And if no, how do you keep them from becoming completely overwhelmed by everything coming at you?
Our, we maybe talked about this before. I mean, I think being an entrepreneur and running your own company, like, it does kind of take over everything, right? It becomes your life and it kind of bleeds into everything. I think when you talk about boundaries, there's certain things I did. You know, I coached my girls' soccer team, right? That was like, you know, one night a week and a Saturday where I was with them, right? And I spent time with them. And I always thought quality of time was much different than quantity of time, right? But I mean, because you have phones and you have email and you have customers and, you know, it's you know, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and, you know, if they're down over the weekend, I'm on a call at midnight on a Saturday night, right? That's not a balance, right? And there's no boundaries. I think over time, you grow, you hire a lot of people, your processes get better, you know, you have more time, but I was always available. You know, my customers always had my cell phone. They could always call me at any time. So I kind of, I don't know, I guess I would say I kind of lived the, you know, no boundary type of life, right? If you needed to get a hold of me, I was going to let you get a hold of me, and that was fine. And I'm okay with that, right? Like, and I think my family was okay with that. And, you know, my wife and I tried to do a weekly date, right? And I tried to spend time with the girls when they, you know, especially when they're younger. So I think you make time is the way that it goes. And, you know, and if something is urgent, you kind of have to deal with that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you and I are kind of, you know, we have friends that are that way. We're sort of unique leaders, right? I think we're a little bit more modern. We don't have the staleness and the 85ing and all the
Right.
little weirdness. So back to Kristen Lucian's question: do we set boundaries for ourselves in the context of work? And if we do, what are they? And if not, how do you keep from becoming completely overwhelmed by everything coming at you? So I actually don't set boundaries. I think that, you know, one of the things I learned a long time ago that people don't work for me, I work for them.
Yeah.
And I think we sometimes have it backwards. I think everyone, when they're a boss, they like to say, "Oh yeah, this one works for me, that one works for me." And the reality is if you're a boss, you actually work for them. Your job is to protect them and take care of them. So I don't have any boundaries in the context of work. And anyone that knows me as a leader knows that I'll talk about anything. You know, my classic half-hour phone call is 20 minutes personal, 10 minutes business. That's how I run. I don't. That's just the way I am. So, you know, how do I avoid becoming completely overwhelmed by everything coming at me? It took me a long time, but I got comfortable, and Eric used to ask me this too. I got comfortable with not getting it all done.
Yeah.
You know, I tried, and it took me a while to learn it, but it was okay if I didn't get to everything or through everything or fix everything. I think that if you're giving it your best, that's good enough, and, you know, within reason. And so no, I don't have any boundaries. You know, I still meet with staff that has been gone for 10 years and or a few years and hang out with them. I still take phone calls from folks. You know, I think that for me as a leader, I love the personal relationships,
Okay.
but I also had to get really comfortable that I couldn't do everything that was asked of me, right? Like, And that's a hard thing to be comfortable with. And I learned a long time ago not to apologize about it either, because I don't need to. If I'm doing my best and putting reasonable time in, and again, we talk about work-life balance, right? You got to take care of yourself. You got to eat. You got to exercise first.
Yeah, there's
right?
certain things you got to
That's
fit in, right? Eating and exercise are two really good ones, right? And sleep.
Yeah,
We were just talking about
and
earlier.
sleep and mental, but you just got to get comfortable with the uncomfortableness and with the fact that if you're doing your best, that your best is actually good enough. And if again, we get into this sort of originality or genuine. What's authenticity is the new word, right? Everyone's wishes they were authentic, but I don't know if I know how to be not authentic, but it just took a long time for me to get comfortable with that. I learned that I actually work for my staff, and I learned that if I was doing my best and I still didn't get it done or get it completed or get it all fixed, that had to be good enough for me as a leader. As somebody that my clients are relying on, I lost sleep all the time. That's a great question, Kristen and Patrick. I appreciate both of those questions. That's about all we're going to be able to get through here today. Let me color code these so we don't go through them. Rich, any final question or closing statement or anything you want to chat up before we bring this to a close and let everybody back to their whatever?
I don't think so, brother. It was good seeing you last week. It was good getting together face to face, and
Yeah.
it's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, we got to figure out how to do one of these in person. We're gonna steal one more minute here because I do have a question for you. Let's talk about guests. So I think one of the things we said was that we would like to start bringing guests on here in the next couple of episodes. Should we do a post about this and just ask our LinkedIn network to just maybe make some suggestions for guests? No
Not a bad
self-nomination.
idea. Let people say who would be your favorite person to be on with us. That's a good one. Let the community speak.
Okay.
And then you and I might pick some of our favorites, right? Because I mean, there's a ton of people. Like, we'd have a year of podcasts if we went through everyone we know and we love, right?
Well, let's do your top three. Who would your first three guests be if you were
Come on, you
nominating
can't-
people? Yes, I can.
I can't answer that.
What do you mean you can't? All right, who would be your first guest
No,
that you would
can't.
suggest?
It's not fair because it will hurt someone's feelings. You can't. I can't do it.
Fuck that. We can hurt some feelings. My list, well, first of all, we're talking about top three. My actual list, I wrote like a little business plan for us, right? So,
No, I do not. I don't think I did.
well,
know
remember when I was on with your that PR group and I read the opening narrative?
that. Yeah.
I'll read that one day. So I actually have a big list here. So
We were with the person just for a minute together at ShopTalk that I think would be a great guest.
You mean the pitcher that looked like he was the only one that didn't want to be in the picture?
100%. That one.
You know what's funny? There's
That's
so many.
because if someone knows about working with us and selling, there would be some pretty funny stories that we might not even know the other side of, right?
Yeah, that's true. I have a mix of like customers and friends and coworkers. Like I'd love to have Eric Doty or my business partner, former business partner on here.
That'd be great.
I'd love to have Finn on here, Dave Finnegan from. I just adore him and he's such a good speaker and he's a true CXO for anyone exploring whether or not that's a real role. It is. Get with the program. I love Rob Garf. I'd love to get Nava on here.
Rob would be great. Nava's been around, so Nava's been, friends forever, right?
How about Barnett and Griff?
I was thinking about that. When you said that, I said, Jeff Barnett would be a trip, And if you went back, I don't know if we'd get Tom to come on. You think Tom
We
would
just
come
got
on?
Tom. He'll come on if we will promise to over publicize.
Griff would be interesting because he went through the whole partner program stuff with us. So
Correct.
if he told the truth, it would be interesting for him to say, "You guys are a fucking pain in the ass." Like, you know what I mean? Like, would he really tell us that?
Well, who else? Like Catherine Murphy would be awesome.
She'd
like,
be great.
Adam Gross, right?
Yeah.
Call JB in. JB's down in like the
Third world
Zimbabwe
country.
province of Australia.
Remember, just the stories of that on the Pabs going like, don't speak up. That's third world country stuff. Remember, we've just messed with them.
Do you remember when Lydiana came to her first pab and thought Einstein was like one product, and we were like, well, we were on WhatsApp and we're like, we're gonna leave her alone because she doesn't even know what she's talking about right now. That was September of 2019, and we were like, this lady has no clue what she's talking about right now. She thinks Einstein's one product, and we all agreed. I still have the WhatsApp thing. We all agreed to like, let's just leave her alone, because that was also the same meeting that Mike Makuchi
Right.
demoed OMS, and we were like, holy fuck, that dude pulled it off. So, I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I think we'll bring this to a close. We're at 1 hour. Rich, it's always good to see you, bud. I love you to death. I'm glad
Good to
you're
see you,
feeling
brother.
better.
Thanks,
And,
man.
I hope you enjoyed episode 3. And we'll see you next time.
We'll talk soon, brother.
See you, buddy.